Dice rolling divas and dudes, it's Prof G. Let's apply what we learned in our prior lesson introducing enums in Swift to add a custom enum to our DungeonDice app. We'll replace our array with a custom dice enum and replace the roll function with a computed property. We'll also explore a few concepts related to displaying strings from enum cases. So let's roll into big learning. Now we're building off earlier lessons, so if you're new here, welcome, but you might want to check out the playlist to see how we got here. And instead of me showing you the solution right away, since you likely know all the concepts for this build, why don't you tackle this challenge to make sure that you've conquered earlier concepts. But in the solution, I'll also be sure to talk about new things, including where we define our enum influences, where it can be accessed and used, and we'll talk about strings, labels, and enum cases, and we'll learn how to make an enum identifiable. But I'll also show you a solution and mention a few things about strings with enum cases. So this challenge will be the refactor with an enum challenge. Create a custom enum named dice, include cases 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 20, and 100. Add a raw value for each case equal to its number of sides as an int. Add a computed property named roll, and that should return a random number from 1 through the case's raw value. Update your app so that you use the enum instead of the old dice types array. Replace that dice types array with a dice enum and delete the old roll a die function. You won't need that anymore. Then match the output that you see over at the right. When you display the result, the roll should be shown as an int, but the number of sides should appear as the written case name. For example, FOUR instead of 4. So this is an example of what a correct solution would look like. Why don't you pause, give this a shot, and when you're ready, resume, and we'll compare answers. So the goal is to replace this dice types array here with an enum named dice. We'll have to apply this in our for each statement, and we're also going to get int of the roll a die func. So why don't we add our enum on top inside the content view struct. We'll say enum, capital D dice, colon, int is going to be the raw value, comma, case iterable, because we want to iterate through all of the cases in this enum, and open and close curlies. Now, smart one, you might wonder, should I make dice private? Well, it really doesn't make much difference in our app, because our app is only a single file, but let me show you how dice usage differs depending on where it's defined in your project, and whether or not you preface it with the private keyword. And I'll show you an example with the dice enum written as it will be by the time we're done with the lesson. So we just defined the dice enum inside of our content view struct, but it is possible to define that enum outside of content view. You could put it above the content view struct, or better yet, you could put it in its own Swift file so that it's easier to find in your project. Now, if you did that, put it outside of the content view struct, dice would be available in code completion throughout your app, and it could be used everywhere. For example, here's another struct that I created for this example named another swiftui view. Dice is available here and everywhere in the project, and it'll show up in code completion when you start to type the name dice. Now let's compare this available everywhere when it's defined outside of a struct with what we've just done. We defined the dice enum inside of our content view struct. Now when we do this, we can use the dice enum inside of our struct without any prefix, just a capital D like I've done here. It'll show up in code completion. Now the dice enum is still available outside of the content view struct. Here's that another swiftui view struct that I created earlier. But to access dice here, you need to add the prefix of the content view before writing dice. That's because dice is sort of buried inside of the content view. And by saying content view.dice, we say look inside the content view and then find dice. That's where it lives. Now that takes away a bit of the accidental usage for dice, since you've got to type so much more to access it outside of content view. But if for some reason you really wanted to lock down dice so that it couldn't be used anywhere outside of content view, well then you could add private out front. If I change the way I defined dice to put the private keyword in front of the enum like I'm doing here, if I try to access dice outside the content view, like in our another swiftui view here, Xcode's going to give me an error. It's going to say dice is inaccessible due to private protection. So hopefully now you're starting to get a better sense of what private is all about and what it means to define items inside or outside a data type like a struct. And we're going to see more examples of these concepts as the course progresses. So now back to solving the challenge. Let's add our cases, and I'm going to do this all in one line. So I'm going to say case 4 equals 4, comma the word 6 equals 6, comma 8 equals 8, comma 10 equals 10, comma 12 equals 12, comma 20 equals 20, and comma 100 equals 100. Now down here we defined a roll die function, but we can replace that with a computed property inside of our enum. We'll say var roll, and since this is a computed property, we say colon, followed by the type this is going to be computed as. This is going to be computed as an int type, and in between parentheses, we can write this all in one line, so we'll say return int.randomin, then specify the range for our random value. I'll say 1 triple dot self.raw value. And just so you know, when you're returning a value in a closure and you only have one line, this works inside of a function too, you can get rid of the word return. Now, I actually don't like that shorthand because I think the return is really explicit and it reminds the developer, hey, I'm returning something here. So for my preference, I'm going to undo and keep the word return in here, but you might see some code examples where there's only one line of return function that doesn't even have the return word out front. Now you know about the shorthand, so you won't be flummoxed. And by the way, the var body property is also a computed property. We could put the word return out in front of the VStack here. The Swift shorthand removes that return though, so that's why you don't see it. Now let's head down into our lazy grid where we create the grid using the for each statement, and we're going to replace our dice types with our new enum D dice dot all cases. That'll iterate through everything, and why don't we change the dice type name that's inside of the closure? We'll just call it die. Now, if we change the name of the value that's being input into the closure, we need to change it in the content of our code. So the button label now has die inside of its string interpolation. Oh, this is wrong. We want the number die.raw value. We'll fix that in a bit. This is going to spell out the word instead of giving us the number, but there'll be another warning here that we'll deal with. And we can completely delete the call to the function roll die. We don't want this anymore, but what we can do is get the content of this message state variable that we update. I'm going to cut it out. Delete the roll die function, we don't need that anymore. Paste the message in between the button's curlies. And then this should read, you rolled a string interp die.roll. Remember, roll is our computed property that gives us the random value. And it's not going to be a string interp sides sided die. It's instead going to be a string interp die raw value sided die. Now, there are a couple of things to note. One is we're getting a warning in here. And if we click on that warning, it's not very friendly, but it does say append interpolation is deprecated. Now, this refers to localized string resource. Those are lists where you can sort of swap out the strings from, say, English to German if you were localizing an app for German. Now, we're actually not doing anything with localized strings in this app, so we're going to ignore that. Now, the problem really is that we're referring to the enum case inside the string interpolation, and swiftui is changing how it handles data inside text. Now, while you can still use an enum case inside of a regular string, swiftui now gives you a warning if you try to do that inside of a view, like a button or text. That's because those views are looking for this thing called localizable string. They aren't sure how to translate a raw case. Remember, our cases are spelled out numbers, the word 4, 6, 8, etc. Now, we really didn't want that. We just wanted the raw value. And you can see that in our buttons. They're all distorted because they're not using the numbers anymore, but we can fix that by adding .raw value after die, and using the raw value is perfectly fine in string interpolation. The warning goes away. So now let's test this out. Things are working fine. Oh, but in the example that I showed in the challenge, this text we referred to at the end of the message string wasn't the integer, the raw value sided die. It was actually the name of the case itself. So that was the number spelled out like FOUR-SIX. So I'm going to get rid of the raw value here. And curiously, we're not getting that same warning inside here. And the reason isn't clear at first, but it has to do with how string interpolation is handled inside swiftui labels. That's what's happening here in the button title. And the ability to refer to the case name inside string interpolation is being deprecated inside of swiftui labels. But it is okay to use the case name inside of string interpolation inside a simple string that's not part of a view like a label or a text view. See how message here is just a string? So the stuff between the double quotes first goes into a string. It'll eventually end up inside of a text view, but as long as we don't have the string interp enum case inside of a label like a text view, we're cool. So this gives us no warning. Weird, but now you know. Now, what if we wanted to perform string functions on that case name after it's converted into a string? Well, one thing we could do is we could do the string conversion in a constant like this. Let die name equals double quote string interp die. Then at the end we can add things like the method .uppercased and then take die name and put it inside of the string interp below. Now that works fine, and if you don't like uppercase, you can change it to capitalized. But you know, a better way to do this is probably inside of the enum itself. So why don't we cut out this constant? We'll head up to the enum and let's create another computed property. So why don't we say var die name :string, because we're going to return a string, and we'll compute it in between the curlies. We'll paste in that constant we cut out, but we don't want this to be a constant here. Instead, I'm going to say return in front of the string, and in the string interp we no longer refer to die, we refer to self. That'll be whatever the selected case is. And remember, if we want to shorten this up, we can get rid of the return, and we can even put this all on one line. And if you want to, you can put the roll computed property on one line as well. We no longer need the dice types array, so let's delete that. And now let's use this new die name computed property. Down here inside the second string interp in our message string in the button action, we'll simply say die.dyname, and we can click these buttons and things look great. Now I did this because I wanted to demonstrate more things related to string operations in enums, but I actually don't need the capitalization in here. I think it looks fine lowercase, so I'm going to highlight .name after die and just put die in here. Totally okay because this is just a string line. It's not part of swiftui text or anything that uses text. Now this works fine. Let me show you one more thing. This isn't necessary, but remember we had to add id:\self in here so that the for each can distinguish between each of the individual elements of whatever we're iterating on. In this case, it's all elements of the dice enum. I'm going to show you how we can actually build in an ID property so that we can get rid of this second parameter here, this id:\self. We'll learn other ways to do this with other data structures, but let me show you how we can do it with this enum. Let's head back up to our enum, and since I'm not using the die name anymore, I'm going to delete this. But here's how we can create an ID property for our enum. I'm going to say var id:, this is going to be of type int, open and close curlies, and since each of our raw values are unique, I'm just going to say return self.rawValue. And I can put this all on one line, and the final thing that's necessary to make this work is to conform to the identifiable protocol, which just means somewhere after we name the enum, we say identifiable. So up top after dice, we've got int, case iterable, identifiable, the identifiable protocol. So one way to think about protocols is sort of like setting the rules. So if you want to call yourself whatever the protocol is, you need to do things like have certain types of properties or functions or initializers. Now there's really only one rule if something wants to call itself identifiable. It has to have an ID property where every ID element is unique, no duplicates. This thing we just added is just that, so now let's use it, or actually take advantage of the fact that we no longer need to explicitly set an ID in our for each. For each knows if something conforms to identifiable, then you don't need to explicitly state the ID in the for each. In the for each, I'm going to highlight this second parameter, the comma, through the self, leave the closing paren in there, and once that's deleted, things still work. It wasn't essential to do this, but now you know about the ID property, that they can be added to enums, and when we do that, we get rid of having to have the explicit ID parameter in our for each. It's also considered good practice because you know you'll never have that warning that we had when we first learned about for each, and we had multiple components that had the same name. So we might say by conforming to identifiable like this, our code is more safe because we never have to worry about trying to identify elements with something that might be a duplicate. So once again, we had lots of big learning in this lesson. Be sure to come back in our next lesson where we'll learn some animation tricks to make it look like our dice roll messages are tumbling like rolling dice themselves. You'll want to roll on into that next lesson where we'll continue to hack.